Okay, hi everybody. My name is Dmitry, and today I would like to discuss with you why developers should review user stories and why developers should test. As always, if you have any questions, I would be glad to answer them at the end of my talk. And before we start, just a short question to the room. How many developers do we have here? Please raise your hands. Okay, any quality assurance engineers? Good. Do we have any project managers? And what about business analysts? Okay, fine. Today I would like to start with communications. Communications is a very interesting topic because communications don't depend on project management methodology a lot and on software development lifecycle. They are more or less same on all projects, and unfortunately nowadays on many projects, especially on large projects, situation looks like that. So roles are highly diversified, people are isolated, they are not, they're focused on their immediate duties, not being aware what's going on other activities for other roles. That basically looks wise from some perspective. It's quite cost effective because if you have a number of professionals, if they concentrate on their immediate duties, they are investing their time with the most efficient way. However, such approach brings some issues, and I would like to go through them quickly. Normally, when people talk about communications, they operate with communication channels term. However, for a constant number of people, number of communication channels remains the same. And it doesn't matter if you have a list of isolated roles or a number of cross-functional people who share responsibilities, etc., etc. What perspective I would like to talk about this from is not communication channels, but communication loops. Let's consider we have a person who cannot resolve some issue himself, needs to ask a question from the team. If we have the team with shared responsibilities, then probably communication loop will be quite short. So a single person is able to provide a lot of information, probably some additional questions involve the other person, but a little bit short. In case of isolated role, situation looks something like that. So Jim goes to Mike, Mike says he's not aware of that, then you need to go to Kate, Kate forwards to the other person, etc., etc., etc. That's obviously bad, it takes a lot of time. Communication loop becomes stretched and very inefficient. The other issue with such approach is that people quite easily switch to not my business approach. It's very understandable from the point of effort and benefits for a single person. So if you're working on your immediate duty, you're probably evaluated against how many tasks you have accomplished. You're quite good at your job, and this brings you a lot of benefits. If you are getting distracted by questions from other people, from some corner tasks, corner cases, it probably will take you more time to answer. Efforts are higher, benefits are less because it's not even your duty. Unfortunately for the whole team, such not my business approach is very bad. Again, communication loops get stretched even further, people are not happy, etc., etc., etc. Then, within isolated roles, communications become formal and slow. If you're not aware what are regular tasks for other roles, what's happening on the other side of the project, you cannot simply come to the person and say, hey Tomek, remember you discussed that point with Mike yesterday, I would like to add, etc., etc. You have to write an email probably, you have to gives a context. This email is about that and that. I'm asking you because you're the only person who can provide me information, then goes your question, etc., etc., etc. So this is very inefficient and happens to be very formal and slow. Finally, having a number of people involved into the conversation, you waste people's time on switching tasks. So the more your communication loops are stretched, the more people got involved, and even if their answer to a question is quite short, they're still distracted. They need some time to return back to their work. One more thing is that with diversified roles, it's hard to keep everyone informed well. There are two issues with that. First of them is underinforming, when you simply don't know that somebody is going to be interested in that information. Information is not shared, people are not aware of something, and it makes life harder for them. But the other issue is overinforming. As you don't normally know who does what outside of your role, it may happen that you're just adding the whole group to CC of email conversation. People get spammed, have to read a lot of emails, lost important information in that avalanche of emails, etc., etc. Communications issues are quite common. There is one indicator which allows you to spot such kind of issues, especially if they are really in a bad state. It may happen that all people on your project are working hard, 100% occupied, but still somehow tasks are not completed in time, deadlines are not met, including personal tasks, including team commitments. All evaluations say that with that number of people, it should be enough for your project to accomplish everything in time, but it's not the case. You're trying to update the process, run some additional meetings, situation gets even worse. You're trying to add some additional people, maybe cover some tasks, situation again gets worse. You're trying to push harder to make people work harder, it doesn't help. It may mean that people are too distracted with unnecessary conversation, and the whole communication process on your project is not in a good shape. There are obviously many ways to deal with communication issues. My short list is here, so to address issues I highlighted, you definitely can provide guidelines on information sharing, confirm what information is shared in which way, how artifacts are stored, etc., etc. You can encourage personal time management, so people waste less time when being distracted. You can introduce some additional roles, like intermediate communicators, people who work like a glue, knowing what's happening around the project and being able to streamline communication loops in the right way. Finally, you can discourage not my business approach simply by management ways, punishing people who do that, prizing people who doesn't do that. That may help a lot. However, all these solutions, well, they're quite common and obvious, nothing new here. Two tricks I would like to talk with you today are much rare. Still, from my perspective, they can bring a lot of benefits. And before I start, a short disclaimer. Those tricks are quite easy, so no rocket science there. But, they're quite simple. But they're not easy. So they are hard because they're mostly not about processes, but about people. And changing people are much harder than changing your process. Starting with the topic why developers should review user stories, I would like to take a look at some communications loop happening on projects. This definitely can slightly depend on methodology, on software development lifecycle, but in general, most of loops remain the same. First of all, there is a loop between stakeholders and business analyst or product owner. I will call this role business analyst just for generalization, but it can be either named product owner on your project. Stakeholders provide some requirements which business analysts use to write user stories. And here we have a kind of review loop, because ideally that user stories should be presented for review back to stakeholders. If this is not happening, consequences can be quite serious, because it may happen that at the end of development, at the moment of acceptance, stakeholders are absolutely not happy with what has been implemented. It may happen that just understanding was wrong between stakeholders and BA, and time was completely wasted, and that's terrible for the project. Good news is that such kind of review happens quite often. So people, both stakeholders and analysts, product owners, they are aware of such risk, and they try to put that review loop in life and check if understanding is the same. The next loop is between business analyst and QA team. Business analyst shares user story understanding with the team on some kind of planning or grooming meeting. Again, depends on methodology. QA team use their understanding of user stories to provide to create, well, many different artifacts, but test cases is a valuable part of that. Ideally, again, test cases should be reviewed by business analysts. This happens much rarely, but good news is that even if test cases are not reviewed, consequences are not that serious. Because, well, probably wrong test cases may cause some wrong bugs to be created. Maybe some functionality will not be tested within this test suite. But wrong bugs can be later spotted at the moment of bugs prioritization. Even developer can say that I'm not going to fix that, it's something wrong. Missing functionality can be again discovered at the moment of some integration and end-to-end tests. However, if such loop does occur, that's better for the project. Then let's switch to review loop between business analysts and developers. Again, user stories are shared in the same way, probably on the same grooming or planning meetings. The issue is that at that meeting, developers do not provide any feedback, any immediate artifacts business analysts can review, because their output is working software which is going to be ready after development is completed. And this is almost as bad as the issue with broken loop between stakeholders and business analysts. Because again, some time is spent on development. If later it appears that implemented story was misunderstood, that's a huge loss. You may say that when developers are asking questions at the moment of planning meeting, that to a certain extent guarantees that they understand what the story is about. That's true, but let's check the following analogy. We have a group of students, let's say, teacher providing a new topic for them. Students will obviously ask questions, but that does not guarantee that students understand the topic completely. Unfortunately, we cannot run exams for developers on user stories. However, there is one other way to be sure that the person you are talking to understands your words. Just make that person tell the same information with his own words. So here goes the trick. It's no longer a review loop, it's kind of an understanding check. The idea is ask developer to describe the user story with his own words back to business analyst and probably back to the whole team. Let's go through a more specific example. Let's say we have the following process, just a generalized one. Business analyst writes user story, shares it with the team, then stories get estimated in that way or another. Then developers get stories assigned to them. Again, it can be done in multiple ways. And finally, each developer digs deep into a story to understand what approach should be taken in development, what algorithms should be used, etc., etc. The idea is to slightly rearrange the order of steps in this process. So after an update, it should look like that. So BA writes user story. Then developer gets assigned with his user story. This point can be a little bit tricky because until user story is discussed, it's not that easy to pick the right developer to assign. There are multiple ways to do it. Business analyst can do it himself, basing his assignment on which technical areas developer is experienced in, which functional areas, etc., etc. That also can be done by project managers, by dev leads involved into this process. Then goes the next step, developers digs into a story. That's the same step. Anyway, developer need to dig into details, need to understand the story completely, to know what to do, what to implement. Then, here is a change. Developer presents the story to a team, not a business analyst. And finally, stories are estimated according to the usual process. I have tried this approach for a couple of years on one of my recent projects. And first of all, I'd like to go through some drawbacks, and then I will highlight benefits of such approach. Drawbacks are pretty obvious. First of all, developers will definitely object. What to say here? Well, we're not wasting time. We're not providing additional activity. Anyway, any experienced developer needs to understand story completely. We're only slightly rearranging the order of steps. I propose to pick a couple of developers who are open to innovation, who are okay to try this approach, and after trying with them, the whole team will find out that approach has definitely some benefits, and that will help you to persuade everyone else to try on their own. The next drawback is that some efforts need to be spent on sharing information back to the team. Here I'm speaking about developer who shares the user story, who describes it back to business analyst and the group. There is a difference between understanding of something, especially if the topic is complicated, and sharing your understanding with the audience, with the group verbally. So for some people it's quite hard to explain even if they completely understand the topic, but that's a useful skill, and it can be obtained quite quick. So nobody requires developers to provide a presentation for hundreds of people. Soon they will learn how to describe the story in the right language, and that become easier for them. Finally, any process change requires you to spend some efforts on that change. It doesn't differ between this trick or any other process improvement at all. So to improve your project, you need to spend some money, some time, and that's the efforts you just have to deal with. Meanwhile, benefits of such approach are quite huge. First of all, communication loop is shortened. So this understanding confirmation cycle happens quite quick. This significantly reduces number of bugs, especially those caused by misunderstandings. This also brings an option for developers to introduce their ideas. It's really amazing how new understanding, how new great ideas can come at this moment, because even though user stories should normally be written implementation agnostic, so they should describe what needs to be covered but not how, we all know how that happens. Story says, as a business user, I need a new table to be displayed, blah, 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 to be able for me to read some information. At that moment, developer can come and say that why do we use table here? We can use some chart instead, some, I don't know, drop-down lists, etc., etc. And that is a really good thing for the whole project, because some ideas will never come to business analyst or even stakeholders' mind. Only developers can help with that. Developers take responsibility on their stories. So there is no more approach like we just implemented what was written and we don't care how it interferes with other part of the project, with other parts of the system. Finally, people are happy to produce good results. They're happy to be able to express their ideas. And that makes the whole project better, makes the culture healthier. People really become fond of that approach. Second trick I would like to share with you is not pure communication trick. It also involves some process changes, and it starts from an issue I would name bugs caused by simple mistakes. We all know how that happens. Validation message is missing, cancel button doesn't work, some misprints take place, configuration file has mistypes, and the whole system is not starting, etc., etc. These bugs are very annoying because it only takes a couple of seconds to make that mistakes. It really can be very simple, but then the whole process starts. QA engineer somehow spots the issue. It needs to get reproduced on probably different environments to find out the boundaries. Ticket is created in bug tracking system. Then bug in bug tracking system goes to some kind of triage groups, people who need to read, understand that bug, prioritize it, aside to the right people. By the way, just an off topic here, triage term, if you're not familiar with that, is a wonderful cross-functional term. It really comes from the methodology doctors use to sort out a huge number of injured people. They quickly sort people in three groups: people who will stay alive regardless of what care they receive, people who will unlikely stay alive again regardless of care, and people for whom immediate care may improve the situation. And such approach can also be used for bugs. By the way, term is dated back to Napoleon Wars, so it's quite old. That's why I would say it should look rather like that. So after triage group has completed their job, bug finally gets assigned to a specific developer. Developer again needs to spend a lot of time. Bug need to be reproduced to find out root causes. It needs to be fixed. Then commitment, comments, changing status, maybe some automated tests, unit tests, etc., etc. Then it again goes to QA engineer who needs to test the core functionality, regress the whole area to verify that nothing is broken, and finally the bug is closed. So you may see this is quite an extremely huge and cumbersome process, really annoying if it's caused by a simple mistake. Unfortunately, it's quite hard to avoid that mistake, so nobody doing them on purpose. It's quite obvious, people are biased, you cannot avoid that. Some options allow you to simplify the case. Let's say if you have automated tests up and running, that may allow you to spot that issues before they go to this testing cycle. However, again, we all know that automated tests are never 100% covering the functionality. For new functionality, they are implemented later than the code itself. Code review can be one of good options to avoid such kind of mistakes, especially if done peer-to-peer, not between regular developer and some kind of lead or architect. Even if developers check their own code inside the group, that's very useful, and some issues can be spotted, but others cannot. Let's say you will never spot a misprint in configuration file just by reviewing this file. It's absolutely impossible. However, there is one approach, and that's the trick I'm going to share with you, which may help to deal with such bugs caused by simple mistakes. The idea is that developer who is implementing functionality can quickly test that functionality himself. At the first glance, that sounds quite insane. So we're going to put additional work on developer, work which really can be covered by QA engineers because they are dedicated people to test that. If we remember that developer time costs probably most of than time of any other person in the team, that sounds quite insane approach, not very good. But let's assume it is possible, and let's check what benefits it brings. First of all, the whole testing should be done wisely. So we are not going to spend time on anything complicated or time-consuming. There definitely should not be testing of advanced negative scenarios or something like that. Some end-to-end scenarios or simple validation scenarios can be covered, especially if the task itself is connected with that functionality, but again, common sense needs to be applied. What can be used are simple smoke and sanity tests that can be quickly run against functionality to verify that everything is implemented correctly. Huge help for this process can be brought from requirements and test cases that are ready, and developer can use them just to compare functionality with the text of user story or with the test cases expected scenarios. Again, this approach is not pure my imagination. I have tried that for a couple of years. Drawbacks, as usual, go first, then I'll talk about benefits. Drawbacks, other developers are not going to be happy. Unfortunately, QA work is often considered to be less qualified. I personally don't agree with that, but developers will object that they're not happy to do such kind of work. At the same time, obviously nobody is happy to produce buggy code. Nobody is happy to waste a lot of time with that simple annoying mistakes. As usual, you can start with a couple of developers open to innovation who can try this approach. One more point, you may find that some senior experienced developers already do that silently on their own. So they more or less verify their code, and for them that will be not even a new way to do things. Certain amount of time need to be invested on this testing, obviously. From my perspective, benefits and saved time are going to be more than wasted time, but still, this can be reduced if QA engineers give some training on how quickly do sanity and smoke testing on the project for a product. I think they willingly will do that kind of training and share their knowledge. Finally, some efforts obviously need to be put into process change, some additional meeting explaining people why and what they need to do. That's again obvious cost of absolutely any change on your project. You need to deal with that. Benefits are absolutely amazing. So first of all, one piece of life cycle is completely eliminated, and that definitely saves more time than any testing can take from developer. So all that complicated, huge, cumbersome process I displayed earlier, it's completely gone. Then developers know how to test efficiently. They operate with the system as a white box, so they know where to kick to break something. And after a short period of first attempts, they later can test really efficiently and really quick. You may say that white box testing is not really revealing all issues. That's true, but QA testing, testing by QA group is still there. So they're going to test as a black box. They're going to spot all the other scenarios, do integration testing, etc., etc. Responsibility of developers grows. As I said, nobody is happy producing buggy code. Nobody is happy to allow himself that simple mistakes. So people are taking care of their functionality. People are aware what they have implemented. They know why it works like that and how it works, basically. This completely changed the whole culture of the project. So you may find out that people outside of your project are interested to join because the atmosphere when people are not doing that monkey job fixing missing validation message over again and again and again, but they are not allowing themselves that simple mistakes. Instead, they're working on real functionality and they do that efficiently and, well, they're proud of themselves. They're owning the functionality, owning the system. It really changed everything for the project. That was the last slide, and from this point we can switch to questions and answers session. So, a second, we have a microphone because people online are listening.
Hi, sorry for being late again. Question, so you talk all this advices through your experience, right? But it's more based on team where he was working the same workplace as you, or it was also in case where team was international?
Well, in that particular case, team was quite co-located, but I don't see any issues with applying that to shared teams.
Hello. I'm interested in how many projects this approach has already been implemented.
Unfortunately, nowadays I'm much less involved in management of projects, and there were only two, basically, one for each trick. But each of them lasts for a couple of years, so it's not just a couple of sprints test. It's kind of quite long-lasting, and benefits were observed for a long period of time.
When you say that the developers should test, this is a thing I didn't get. You mean the creating, for instance, automated unit tests and integration tests, or testing at a higher level when the full application is started?
It's a good question. Again, it should be applied wisely and using common sense. So, as a developer, you normally know how many unit tests or integration tests you already have, what kind of scenarios they cover. If you feel like that's enough for this particular functionality, then that's enough. If you're implementing something specially connected with user interface, which is much less covered by unit tests, then some amount of manual testing will be good to avoid that simple mistakes. But definitely just a common sense. So if you're implementing, I don't know, performance fix, then obviously no manual testing should be done on your side.
Okay, because I think that having a, let's say, decent amount of unit tests and integration tests, and then doing pair programming and code reviews, and having a static analysis, it's really, really hard to make a stupid mistake. And in this case, I mean, employing a set of automated tools prevents developers and everybody who develops the code from making stupid mistakes and the typos.
I see. If it works for your project, I'm really happy for you. Because mostly I met the projects when a certain amount of automation, different kinds of code reviews, pair programming are much rare practice, unfortunately. But even having that activity set up on many projects, still it's not enough to avoid that simple mistakes, unfortunately.
My point is that employing automated tools makes developers more happy than having them test the code in a more manual fashion.
That's true.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, I think we can discuss after coffee break every topics and every interesting ideas which you have. And now I would like to invite Lena. Thank you, Dima, for your great speech.
You're welcome.
Dobra, to ja mam włączone, tak? Włączyłeś? Okay. So, a small attention. And first of all, hi all. As you know, we organized some contest for programmers called Plan Your Weekend in London. And today it's the best time to find out who is the lucky winner. But firstly, some words about contest. There were 6 tasks for front-end, .NET developers and QA. And if one of you answer correct and send this answer between 21st of March and 23rd of April, it means that today you have a chance to win 2 tickets to London and for concert in London too. More information also you can find at our website, but let's start. More than 300 people sent the answer to us. And among all answers, only 65 people got it right and will take a part at our lottery today. We analyzed all your answers, and now using random.com, we are going to determine who is the winner. So first step, we will choose a number from 1 till 65. Okay, and the winner is number 4. And for a second, I will turn off for not sharing personal data, and we will know who is the winner. Okay, and number 4. Sorry, it's Polish law. I cannot do it in another way. Okay, 3, 2, 1, and and the winner is Alexei Duritsyn. And dear Alexei, we will connect to you in the nearest future. We will call in you by phone and writing you email with all details. Thank you very much for your contest and for your answers. And see you soon. Thank you a lot.